Our next presentation is by Khalid Khawaja, and he is the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at RIT Dubai, and has a long and distinguished career in higher education. And before RIT Dubai, he was the Associate Dean of the School of Engineering at the American University in Dubai. He's also been a VP of product development, so he brings both higher ed and industry background. And he's got a very interesting presentation on using organizational values from highly effective tech companies to plan the future of education, with a particular focus on DevOps. So should be very exciting. So we'll begin.
Thank you very much. Can you all see my slides?
Yes, you can see the slides.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session. Really a pleasure for me. I'm just curious, how many are in the room? I can't see the room, so I don't know how many are joining, or I'm just curious.
Looks like there are, on the screen, looks like there are 8 of us.
Okay. All right. So as the title says in my presentation, that I'll be trying to really find out, explain why I think a lot of the things that we see in high-tech companies can really help us in advancing the education formula, really to plan the future of universities and the education system. So here's what I'm going to be touching upon. I'll try to give some history leading to DevOps, or the DevOps methodology. So I'll try to give some context. And then once we have that context, I'll try to present a hypothesis for linking what tech companies do today in order to be successful to the education system. And the link I found, or the hypothesis, will basically hinge on what we call the CALM values. They stand for culture, automation, lean, measurement, and sharing. So one thing I'll just say up front is that it's just amazing to me, once I was able to create or make that link, how much it has helped me try, with my journey in terms of finding ways to implement strategies that will advance the university strategy at large in achieving its goals. And really, the pandemic and the things that has happened as a result of it has only accelerated this, because I think there is more reception now to the ideas that I'll be presenting today. So let me start, let me give you first a bit of a background. When I finished my PhD, I started as a software engineer. I started a company in Cincinnati. The company was, at that time, Structured Dynamics Research Corporation, or SDRC. It's now actually part of Siemens, so it's Siemens PLM Solutions. I was a software engineer for over 10 years before I moved back to education. And obviously, that's really my specialty, and my specialization or research interest is really in software engineering, the application and enterprise system and its application to education. And it was very interesting to me, when I started my career in the mid-90s, even mentioning that you really need to deal with writing software as an engineering field, that it is actually engineering work, was actually something that you had to defend and you had to present and explain really why. A lot of the methodology at that time was still centered around, a lot of companies were still centered around just coming up with an idea, coding it, actually presenting it as an engineering field where you have to plan, analyze, design, develop, deploy, and maintain was actually an area that you can discuss. And then uh, you know, seeing the evolution of writing software within software engineering has always been interesting to me. Again, in the mid 90s, where uh, we could see movement from writing structured code and going into object orientation, how it has helped in writing modular programs, in creating design patterns, writing software, better software quality, and all that. But it was still difficult with that domain to take care of services like security, manageability, all these ITs, enhanceability, all these things that are related to these aspects. And then the popularity of the internet uh, basically laid birth to enterprise systems, and we could see all systems like, or frameworks like J2EE, which later on became GEE. And the idea behind it was to really make sure that you are able to write enterprise level systems that are secure, that are manageable, um, that take care of this multi-layer software systems that you're writing. But then it brought in to the surface a bigger problem, which is the interaction between development and operations. And these became really obvious, the silo structure within software companies. And that was magnified when even that enterprise system evolved to, big data, cloud systems that involve virtualizations and all these things like software as a service and platform as a service and all these. So this is kind of just a really very quick snapshot of very high level evolution of how in the past 20 years kind of writing software has evolved and software engineering systems have, or frameworks have evolved. But out of this need, DevOps was really born. The idea, the issue that there is this friction, this silo structure between development and the people who actually deploy and take care of maintaining the software, the operations. And something has happened. And, there are so many articles about modern tech companies, how they are killing it. This is just one article, one link that I put in front of you here. But they have shown that they have become really very effective in what they do. When a company like Amazon is able to make, something like 50,000 deploys a day, and these are functional uh, uh, application, or elements of an application that actually does something to millions of, and hundreds of millions of users in a secure, reliable, efficient way, they're doing something right. And they are very effective at doing it. And we need, the idea behind this presentation is that should we learn, first of all, can we learn from it or should we learn from it? And if so, what is it that we can learn from them? And why is that? Why focus on them? And here's the reason, because every time you go out in whatever business you're in, there is this term that you keep hearing, that everything is becoming a software, or the softwareization of things. You cannot ignore that. And you cannot say the same thing about other industries. Yes, robotics are becoming really popular, but we still cannot say that everything is going to be robotics based. Biomedical sciences and engineering, yes, they're becoming popular, but you cannot say that they're in everything. Whereas the concept that everything is becoming a software is really sinking in. Um, uh, Soon transportation is becoming a software, shopping is becoming a software, renting cars is becoming a software, everything is becoming a software. And here's then the hypothesis that I would venture into making, that education institutions must analyze and implement pillars of success found at large software technology companies when they are marching into the future. And again, the reason is because everything is becoming a software and technology. I remember, if 20 years ago, we would go to need to have it at the center of what you do. And that's a very difficult argument to make, and many if you still think that you can put somebody is going to come in your business, get seen it in books, booksellers, airline, whatever, you name it. Very successful is because they're looking at themselves as soft. But anyways, that's so the hypothesis. Let me focus on the hypothesis here. Education. What I'm going to present is that certain aspects that we were able to implement here of potential for it. Just maybe if you agree with this hypothesis, then it may help you. If this hypothesis is true and I need to look at software companies, what is it that I need to look at that can help me at least start? And I found the DevOps movement, to be extremely helpful with that, with answering that question, because it's really a framework. It uses a lot of things that have been built over the years, like agile concepts, lean, automation. It uses all these concepts, puts them together in a really nice framework that allows anybody who wants to build a successful technology company to actually do it and do it, and do it really successfully. So, and within the DevOps framework, there's this Jiz Humble, one of the writers of the book that I'm going to use heavily in this presentation, called the DevOps Handbook, used this or coined this term called CALMS, which is culture, the environment of an organization; automation, which is the tool chain that you use to automate various tasks; lean, and that describes the flow or the value stream, the workflows within your organization; measurement, it's the feedback loops that you have; and then sharing, which is how much learning you have within your organization. He coined that, and then they used it within a really nice framework that has a lot of components within it. So there are, for example, there's something called the DevOps principles, which uses the first flow, second flow, and then a feedback flow to kind of put principles that will allow you to kind of chart a way to move into DevOps. But that's, I'm just going to focus on these 5 elements. I'm going to explain each one of them, and I'm going to then try to project them into education, certain elements of education, and just use it to prove that if you take these and really take it seriously and understand these principles and understand and see how technology companies are applying them, they really have a lot of value if you actually use them within an education institution, and it can really help in putting some pillars to really advance into the future. So again, the DevOps Handbook is a recipe that a recipe for introducing DevOps into software companies. I'm going to use a lot of the material from that book in the presentation that I have here. So by definition, DevOps, just quickly, so just to understand what DevOps is it's really a cultural and professional movement that has elements within it to emphasize at the end of the day linking development to operation so that you can produce a really high quality software really fast. And it really hinges or stresses communication, collaboration, integration between development and operations in order to do that. So, there are many definitions for DevOps, but this is really in short what it is. And the values, these Calm's values, have proven to be a really good starting point for initiating any journey. If you are in a software company and you really want to go towards the DevOps movement because you really want to compete and you really want to change your environment so that you can produce really high quality software really fast, this is a good starting point to start understanding what's going on. So what I'm going to do is explain these, but then I'm going to use them to really change and defend that changing our education environment so that we can apply these things can really help us move into the future. And I'll towards the end, and I'm going to say it now, I'm going to venture into saying if we really don't do that as education institution, some education institution will do that, and then they will lead and they will be able to be ahead of us, just exactly like how it happens in all kinds of industries. So culture. This is a very important topic because let's start from the definition of it. So I picked this definition from this link. Organizational culture is the values and behaviors that contribute to the unique social and psychological environment of an organization. The key thing to remember here that if you want to instill certain culture within your organization, for example, that you like to break the silos and have people to communicate and share more easily with them, among them, or you want to be able to make sure that you instill a culture of learning, a culture that really promotes people to go find and learn new things, etc., etc. You cannot start by saying that I want to change the culture of my company or my organization or my institution. What you can do is instill certain behaviors that eventually lead to directly changing the culture. And this is a very important concept. And usually when I have more time, with a large group of people, I would, run a survey. But really, the key thing about the survey is, an org behavior, organizational management. They divide companies into or organizations or institutions to three different types. So you have the pathological or the dictatorship type company or organization. You have the bureaucratic and you have the generative. And each one has its own characteristics when it comes to various things. For example, information. In a pathological institution, you hide information. Every entity is kind of really hiding, and really holding tight whatever information they have. In a bureaucratic environment, information is ignored, whereas in a generative organization, it's actively sought across the organization. And when it comes to the messenger, somebody comes with an issue or something going wrong with the institution. A pathological, that messenger gets shot. In a bureaucratic one, that messenger is isolated. He's a troublemaker. Let's not get close to him. In a generative organization, he is trained, meaning, okay, great. This is really, let's see why, that observation, let's look into it. And the good part is taken and acted upon. And then that messenger is trained so that next time his observation is ironed out even better, and it's even pinpointed to the problem even better. Um, and think about it in universities, how this works when somebody comes, complaining about a particular system or a particular curriculum issue, how it's perceived, especially if it's cross department. Sometimes I see, if engineering complain about, let's say, the mathematics, the quality of mathematics educations that the students get in the foundation classes. Uh, Observing how people act when something like that happens is interesting. And thinking about this and saying, okay, how can I really move the organization from the left to the right? How can that happen? Uh, and then we can move down the list. Responsibilities. You ask someone to do something, and then in a pathological organization, it gets shirked at. In bureaucratic, it's compartmentalized, where you know each department, especially in education, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that quite a bit. Whereas in a generative organization, people kind of gladfully share responsibility to move the organization or the institution forward. Breaking the silos, bridging, discouraged in the left, allowed in the middle, in the bureaucratic, and then rewarded and actually highlighted in a generative organization. And this is a good one, failure. Uh, you know, on the left, it's covered. Failure, people try to cover any failure they make. In a bureaucratic organization, great, yeah, you failed, but we're really nice. We're going to be really merciful and just, and we're just going to find ways to forgive you. Whereas in a generative organization, it promotes inquiry. And I use that. I can tell you one of the things with the team I work with, when someone fails, I make sure that if they actually look at that failure, analyze it, and fix it, and then put in parameters to make sure that it doesn't happen again, in their annual review, that's actually put as a positive thing. Look what happened. Look how well they've done when that failure happened. It actually ends up being a positive thing on their record because they acted in a very responsible way, and they used that failure in order to move the organization forward. And then novelty. And I think with universities, maybe usually a lot of universities, they do well there, but we can be surprised. It's very surprising when I run such a survey among a group of 20 people, the kind of curve that I usually get. And just by looking at this and basically saying, I want to really move the curve to the right, a lot of times this can be extremely very helpful. And I tell you, within technology organizations, especially those that those that implement DevOps, they really look at this very closely, and they do a lot of things in order to move the organization to the left, to the right. Sorry. So that's an amazing thing, and that's an amazing finding. If this is successful in technology companies, in Amazon, in Google, and in Facebook, I really need to pick on this, and I really need to implement this if I want to move my university into the future. So how do we use this? Let's set the right culture. You can't change a culture, but I can change habits, and I can use a lot of metrics. Obviously, this is just I'm trying to pick really the key things out of each one of those values. And I heavily recommend, if you really feel that this can be valuable, looking into the DevOps movement. Starts with there's a good book written by the same authors that wrote the DevOps handbook. The DevOps handbook is kind of a little bit technical because it kind of gives a recipe to move a technology company into DevOps. But you can start with, there's this book, The Phoenix Project. It's written like a novel about a company that was not in DevOps and then started a little bit implementing DevOps and things that have happened. It's a really good starting point. But anyways, the point here is We can't change culture, but we can change habits, and we need to increase the number of generative habits within our organization. This is the takeaway from that first one of five element, the culture. Automation. Uh, uh, in software companies, automating software development so that it can move seamlessly from the dev side all the way to deployment as fast as possible is a big thing. And I can talk about all kinds of aspects. This is a very general picture, but and there's a lot of software. They call it in software industry. They call the tool chain. What kind of tools you use in order to plan, code, build, test, deploy, and operate your environment. So there's a lot that goes there. But the idea behind the concept behind it is that you waste a lot of effort when there is something that's done manually by a large group of people, and we find out that there are tools that can automate them. Uh, so it makes sense. I mean, I look, for example, our institutional effectiveness office or our co-op office or advising office, and and I can easily identify all kinds of things that repetitive work that they just do manually, extremely boring, and it takes forever uh, for them to do it. And it's like, okay, how can we automate this? Can we actually, we're working on our 22-27 strategic plan. And it was amazing to me that after years of trying to say we need to automate, a lot of people within our university say, you know what, we want to put automation as one of our objectives to achieve one of the goals related to academic in our strategic plan. They kind of see that really automation is so important right now. We need to actually put it in our strategic plan. And I thought, man, we're getting somewhere. This is really nice. So hammering this concept that if there is a tool that I can use so that I can do things faster, I really need to implement it. Okay, software industry, they're doing it. What kind of how do they do it? They don't do it big bang. It's done gradually. So they start because if you bring in a tool just for the sake of bringing a tool, you usually lose. You just end up paying money and you get nothing out of it. So you need to really do some analysis. And in DevOps, they call that value stream mapping. You kind of try to understand your system, your workflow, and then start automating the pieces that you feel, they give you the low-hanging fruits that can give you so much value for your money. Start there. And I thought, okay, let's look at it. Pick on each one of our offices, pick one thing, and let's go after a tool that we can implement that can make your life easier. If it can save 20%, 30%, 40%, it'll be great. And what we found out that really doing it that way actually helps us moving forward. So so automation is important, and as I said, this thing here at the bottom, of the stairs, the value stream mapping, has really amazing root in what we call lean, and this is from the manufacturing industry. So yes, do your value stream mapping, understand the flows within your university, and then really use that in order to identify where are the areas that you can actually automate. And there are all kinds of ways, actually very well established, whereby if you decide that, okay, my institutional effectiveness office is really having a lot of issues because they're spending and wasting a lot of time on one task, and it's really, really manual. Get in a room and a lot of post-it notes and try to understand what are the steps they go through, and see how much time it takes to get into each step, how much time you spend within that step, and then suddenly you will find that it's extremely revealing. It's actually, it will help you out understand what kind of tool that will help you maybe automate some of that. Um, uh, and there's this concept about, you know, sometimes you may need to try, you need to plan something, do, check, and act. Kind of get into that PDCA cycle, so that you can improve the flow within each office. Um, and you know, if you talk lean, you must mention Toyota, the Toyota, you know, the car manufacturing company. And I really, there is that concept that they have there that I really would like to uh, um, share with you. So I'm going to share a little video that I'm going to use to explain some, out of all of this, one important aspect that we picked on, and I feel can be really useful within our university. So let me see if
one process to the next through intelligent automation and the efforts of our team members. If an abnormality occurs and a defective part is about to move to the next process, the line is stopped. We have various devices in our processes and machines to implement Jidoka. One such idea is our pairing of a rope call switch and Andon, an electric signboard. If team members judge there to be any abnormality, they can use the rope switch and Andon to indicate a problem has been detected. Here, a team member finds a problem and pulls the call switch beside the production line. A chime sounds, and the number 26 on the Andon lights up in yellow to inform the team leader that there's a problem at number 26 workstation. The team leader proceeds immediately to the site to investigate the situation and provide assistance. If the problem is solved within the prescribed section of the line, the team leader pulls the rope again. This turns the yellow light on the Andon off, letting all production workers know that the line is returned to normal. If the abnormality cannot be corrected within the prescribed section of the line, it automatically stops. The Andon light then changes to red. In this way, the colors of Andon's lights let everyone know the condition of the production line at a glance. Poka-yoke, or fail-safe devices, also prevent the manufacture of poor quality products. The line is designed with machines to automatically detect an abnormality and send a trouble signal that stops the line if the problem is not solved within the prescribed section. For example, a color-coded pole-shaped light is connected to an impact wrench. This light shows whether or not the correct force is being applied by the wrench in tightening a bolt. A blue light goes on when a worker starts tightening a bolt. When the worker finishes tightening the bolt, the blue light changes to green. If a bolt has been tightened too loosely or has been left untightened, a buzzer sounds and a red light goes on to advise the worker of the situation. If the worker does not solve the problem indicated by the signal from the Poka-yoke, the production line stops at a predetermined point. We have incorporated various devices in both our production equipment and work procedures to build quality into products at each point and prevent defective items from going on to the next process.
thank you, everyone. Seems every time we play the video, it kicks me out. It freezes. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, and you're back.
Excellent, thank you. So let me share that back. So, you know, I can kind of, you know, there are a lot of examples about, you can hear me well, yeah?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
There's so many of them. But if students are we're now working on this end-on cord thing, uh, 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 where we created an academic dashboard, and we're adding a button there called Request a Course Focus Group. So a faculty, the idea behind this is, if a faculty is teaching a class and notices there's a problem, why not offer them that button in a readily available uh, academic dashboard, whereby they can click it, and the button will basically look at that class, find out that class is prerequisite to which classes, and then try to initiate a workflow where the faculty that are teaching these classes, that this class is prerequisite to, and the department chair maybe can have a focus group. Talk about this. Have that faculty who's noticing a problem within their class talk about people that it will affect them. Faculty members that will see that problem being migrated to them. I can bet you that so much good will materialize as a result of this. And it will create the swarming culture that this video is talking about, and the DevOps framework talks a lot about, is that a problem that you sit on will snowball. It will have a snowball effect later on. So if you put in mechanisms and culture within the organization whereby a problem somewhere, it's a problem for the entire organization. Let's really swarm at it and try to figure out a solution for it. A faculty is saying, I'm having problems, an interesting, unusual problem with students in this class. Let's all swarm trying to help him out. Really, are these students particularly weaker than other cohorts? Can we bring in some help from our development center or our tutoring center or our writing center to kind of help with this? Can we bring in our counselors? Maybe there's a big, the pandemic has caused all kinds of issues in masses among students. Can we bring our counselors to try to help out? Can we do anything while we have a chance to really give that faculty more opportunity to succeed with these students while this class is running? So much good can happen as a result of this. And again, that's just one principle out of this end-on cord concept. So, and here's the dashboard. How did we use it? One of the key things, I've been working on this dashboard for over a year now. The green piece is still work in progress, hasn't been deployed yet, but all these other pieces have been deployed, and I'll link those shortly when we come to the measurement and sharing link. But the point I'm trying to make here is that in terms of the automation and lean aspects of this column's values, is that let's understand our processes, improve them as much as we can by introducing automation and using tools. Don't underestimate the value that tools can actually bring into allowing you to succeed within your education environment. And as a result of the pandemic, more people are accustomed to technology. Use this as an opportunity. Don't sleep on it, because out of there are a lot of colleagues that I work with that before the pandemic, I thought I can never get them to use certain tools, certain platforms that we brought in, because they're optional, and I think that really they should use it, but I couldn't convince them to do so. And now the percentage of those colleagues that are sold on these platforms that I thought are basic is just amazing. I mean, we're in the 90 percentile now. When before the pandemic, we're maybe at the 60 percentile. So use that to the advantage to really advance this concept. I think it's time to do something like this. And then in terms of culture, create a culture of swarming, I think, to assist. Breaking these silos, I think, is a big principle out of this. And then start small and publicize success. This is really important because with any initiative, you're not going to have, again, you're not going to be able to change culture overnight. You can't do that. It's little habits that you can introduce. And you'll find out that pick on groups who are receptive to new things, start small with them, and when you succeed, publicize it and really make a big deal out of it so that others can take notice of it and then grow that. That's something that tech companies use a lot in order to promote DevOps, and I think that's also very applicable in this environment. I know I probably have 5 more minutes, so I'll speed through these. Measurement within the tech industry, having a lot of gauges to measure what's happening at various steps of the way is extremely important. These feedback loops are extremely important. And that brings me to basically, and again, there are a lot of examples about that, but that brings me back to the dashboard that we worked on. One thing I noticed is that faculty don't know what institution effectiveness is doing. Our cooperative education office, they do all kinds of great things, but our advisors are unaware of it. Our advising have all kinds of things happening, but our people, they kind of they live within their domain and they're very, very happy with it. So having these measurements exposed to everyone so that there are no secrets, people are aware of what's happening within the university. To create, the first step in breaking silos is to make data available from each one of those silos to everybody else, and that will start the journey of breaking creating bridges basically between them. So okay, let's create that academic dashboard whereby we have every office kind of create all kinds of data and make it available to everyone within the organization, and hence we created this. So if you go, for example, within the cooperative education link, you click on it, you'll find all kinds of data related to how many students they were able to place, what companies they have relationships with, how many students are interested in co-op, and how many were they able to place. And so if there are issues now, the whole organization has an opportunity to at least know there's an issue. So if we want to create a swarming culture whereby if there's a problem, we try to help, well, at least the data is now available so that we can actually realize that there's a problem and we can go and try to all help. Same thing with institutional effectiveness with the rest of them. And then the beauty of it, the faculty started liking going to this academic dashboard to kind of see all kinds of things. By the way, this one here, the research strategy, because it always struck me that when institutions create strategy, but you ask anyone about the strategy or how is it advancing, and nobody knows. Sometimes people say, well, what do you mean? We have a strategy? So actually, we put it there. We put the strategy there. Not only that, any milestones that we hit that will allow us to achieve that strategy, we actually put it in the data display under that button. So anybody within the organization can go at any time, if they're losing sleep at night and they want to look at something that can really get them to sleep, they can go there and they can look at all kinds of data related to, how many research articles we have published so far in order to achieve our milestone on research or something like that. They can see all kinds of data related to meeting that strategy from there directly, and everybody within the organization is able to do that. And our work in progress, as I explained earlier, related to the Andon chord concept, will be here. And really, the academic dashboard has given us mechanism to share things like that. Finally, sharing. Tech companies have something called internal DevOps days, and they have all kinds of things that they do with that, where they allow people to kind of share learning. The one example that I really like to mention here is one by Netflix. In April 2011, anybody that was using Amazon Web Services in the US East Coast, they went down. There was a big issue and they went down. All of them except Netflix. Because a year earlier, what Netflix did was introduce something called the Symbian Army. It's really interesting. It's like, imagine what would happen if you release a monkey or monkeys, a lot of monkeys into your data warehouse. What would happen? Well, those monkeys will start pulling cords, and servers will start coming down and all that. So they created a bunch of software tools that will randomly go pick on servers and bring them down. So what they did was release those tools, bring in the engineers and have them be ready, and basically release those tools so that they can simulate a Symbian army going into their data warehouse, where servers will start coming down, and then they will see how their resilience software, all the software they've written in order for their entire platform to be resilient and be able to adapt to all these things, events happening. They'll see how they function, and if it goes too far, they'll stop that, and then they'll try to learn what happened, what went wrong, and then try to learn from it, improve it, and then run it again. Imagine having such a learning environment where you can tolerate error to that level. I think this is the concept that we need to embrace and move forward. So how do we use this? Hold events, promote sharing experience and learning. Again, back to the culture concept, where you probably want to tolerate error, but not tolerate it in a negligent way, but tolerate it in a learning way. That yes, we tolerate error because we want you to learn, and as long as it is within a learning context, we want to actually do that. So, final words. Think about this. I think if you're looking for a way to kind of chart a path for to go into the future with your university, with your education environment, I suggest that maybe it's worth looking at these DevOps movement and the DevOps values, because they have charted a way for technology companies to really move into the future, creating very high quality software that's very secure. And since everything is becoming technology, what I'm proposing here, take those values and try to implement them. I think you'll see a lot of potential for it. We have here at RIT Dubai, and I think there's so much yet to really experiment with and look at and report on, and I'm personally really excited about. And keep in mind this curve, that all new effort and new ideas, you usually have small group that will actually embrace it and really use it, but then it will grow. So don't get discouraged. There are all kinds of mechanisms that you can grow it until you have all the majority of the people embrace what you're doing. Thank you. Any feedback or interest in this topic, please shoot me an email. Here's my email address, kxkcad@rit.edu. And if there are any questions, I'll be really happy to answer in the next maybe 2 minutes or so.
Sure. There's a question in the Q&A from Mati, and his question is, making work visible is a great idea. Should we also make learning for each student visible in a student dashboard? Have you done things like that or thought about things like that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's just easier, if your faculty, your team are, you need to practice what you preach, right? So, and I think you're already thinking ahead. And absolutely, once you create an environment, a culture where learning is embraced, where sharing is embraced, then it will, it will just go across all levels. And definitely, uh, uh, having students that can embrace that is definitely the next step. So yeah, good question. Absolutely.
So I think we got a little bit more time left. Not sure there are other questions. Let me just check the chat. Doesn't seem to be, but I have a question. So first of all, thanks a lot for the presentation. It was really great to hear. It's very refreshing. And I'm just wondering, within higher ed, where else do you find people thinking like this? And are there a group of you who are supporting one another and learning from one another, or do you feel still somewhat isolated in it?
That's why I'm here. So yes, I think it's still really hard to get people to really embrace the idea. You bring all these examples and you tell people, I mean, look what happened to Borders, look what happened to taxi companies, look what happened to, malls, and what online shopping did to department stores, and look what Tesla is doing to the auto industry. And it's still, it's a snowball thing. It's really happening everywhere. You really need to change your thinking. You really need to really start thinking about viewing technology in a different way. I can say that yes, a lot of people are more receptive, but in terms of working on it and creating a group that will actually embrace these things, it's still, I think, it's in infancy. And I again, anyone that likes to, really brainstorm and join, I'd really be happy to, talk.
So great. So thank you again. I know some of us will be in touch with you on this. It was, I think, really great to hear the discussion go not just from emulating corporate models, but getting to the specifics of a particular transformative approach where an industry has actually changed the way it does its work. And we've talked about that in higher ed, but there are so few examples of it that it was really refreshing to hear all of this, and particularly your enthusiasm. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.